So last week we started working on the training board, and we discussed some of the components that we used. So this time we got a couple of different components. So one of the fans that we used last week was this one. This is our two-speed fan. Notice that it has three wires. It has the neutral wire, and then it has a black wire, which is our high speed, and then it has a red wire, which is our low speed. And today we're going to be using this fan, but then we're bringing in that second fan that we didn't use last time. And notice this one only has two wires. That's because it's a single speed motor. So it's just got a neutral and a hot. And this is a single speed motor. So this one is going to simulate our condenser fan motor. And then the two-speed fan is going to simulate the blower motor that would be located in the furnace of a real system. And then also we used relays, but we didn't use any contactor last time, which works, really similar to the relay. But the difference is both contacts are hot at the same time, and they're both de-energized at the same time. It just depends on if the coil is energized or not. So we got our coil here, just like on the relays. And this coil is connected to these terminals on both sides. So whatever you connect here and here, that's gonna energize your coil, and then that's gonna generate a magnetic field, and it's gonna pull the contacts closed. So if you have 120 volts here or 240 volts here, it's not gonna pass to this side and actually power up your motors until this coil has energy and it closes, which is again why we have our low voltage section and our high voltage section on our diagrams, because our low voltage is our control voltage. That's all that's doing is opening and closing the contacts. Then our high voltage, that's sitting right here ready to go. As soon as the contacts close, voltage passes over to this side, which is connected to our loads, which is our motor, compressor, whatever we're operating. So we're going to introduce the contactor into today's little project. Let me pull up the diagram. Where's my diagram? I don't see it. Oh, I know where it is. Okay, got my diagram. Go ahead and share my screen. So this was the diagram we were working off of last time. We had our low speed connected. We had the little red light connected to simulate the gas heat, and we were only using W, which is the heating circuit on the thermostat. And once W is energized, our 24 volts will pass through our temperature switch, which is inside of the thermostat, and then it's going to energize the relay 2 coil and the heater coil. So the relay 2 coil, once those contacts are closed, that's what energized our light. And then once this heater relay contact was closed, that's what energized our low speed fan. So now we're using a different set of components. So we're still using our relay 1, but instead of our low voltage, which actually I could have left this whole portion off. We're not going to connect anything here. Instead of using our not low voltage, low speed, we're going to be using our high speed on our 2-speed motor. And then also we introduced our single speed fan here. That's going to be like our condenser fan motor. So we have our green light and our single speed fan connected to our contactor. So this C here and this C here represents the contacts on our contactor. Down here in our low voltage section, we have a C again. This is our contactor coil. And then we're going to be using Y, which is our cooling circuit, and we're going to be using G, which is the fan. So there's a switch on our thermostat that I think we might have talked about, but our fan switch. It has auto and it has on. And that's what you see right here in the diagram, auto or on. So if the fan switch is on auto, which it usually is almost all the time, that means the fan is only going to operate when the air conditioning or when the heat is on. When the air conditioning or the heat is off, the fan goes back off and it stays off until you want to use the AC or the heat again. With if you switch it to on, the fan is just going to come on and run regardless if you're using the heat or the AC at all. So you could have the AC and heat off, not use either, and just flip that on and just run the fan just to circulate some air. So, and this is operated by the G circuit. So the fan, so G is your fan circuit, Y is your cooling. So if we leave this on auto and we turn on our cooling, then we're going to energize the Y and the G, and the fan's going to come on in high speed. So low speed is when, if you notice, if I go back to last week's, you notice we don't have a G down here at all because the low speed terminal is energized by the heat relay. So the heat relay got its power from W. So low speed only operates when the heat is on. So if we were to, so today, if we were to flip the switch to on, it's going to operate in high speed. Or when we turn our AC on, it's going to operate in high speed. Low speed is going to be completely, disabled today because we're not using the heat. 1 second, I'm only going to answer because this is a student. I think he's trying to get in. Hey, Darren, you trying to get in the meeting?
I set up an account for this Microsoft thing, and it keeps asking me. So I put in my email, then it says, how do you want to use Teams for school, for friends and family, or for work? So when I put in for school, it's like trying to treat me like I'm a teacher, I guess.
Huh. So what happens when you click the link?
It takes me to this page. It doesn't. It should. I signed up and put my email in it, and it should take me straight to your meeting, right?
It should. I'm not 100% sure on how to figure that out right now, but I am recording it. So if what I want to do is I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna let you play with it because I'm not quite sure. But if you don't get in, I'm gonna send the link out as soon as I get done so that everybody can you can review it, and then later, like offline, just me and you, we could try to figure it out if you don't get it already.
Okay.
Okay.
Like with the other one, like it did it again, but like since you put that link in there, I just go to that and then straight it all out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay. I keep working with. Do you think I should just disinstall it and start all over again?
That might help. That might help.
Okay.
Yeah, see what that does. And when we get done, if you don't get it figured out, well, I'll touch base with you and we'll see if we can get it going.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. Turn that off. Okay. So go back to my diagram. So I think I left off saying that low speed isn't really even going to be a part of this equation, which is why because we're doing the cooling. But I just kind of wanted to go back because I know sometimes with the diagrams, it could be a little bit confusing because over here, last week when we were using the boards, there was no G in sight, and yet we were operating the fan. So I can imagine someone thinking, well, if G is for fan, how is the fan working? Well, there's two fan controls. There's the low speed, which is controlled by the heat relay, and then there's by terminal number 2 on relay 1, and then the high speed, which is connected to G, is operated by either the fan, if you just switch fan on, or if you turn the AC on, which is illustrated right here. So so that's our diagram. Just a quick recap. We know these are contactor contacts. We know this is our relay, and that's our temperature switch, cooling terminal, fan or cooling circuit, fan circuit, contactor coil, relay 1 coil. Up here is all 120 volt stuff. All these components down here operate on 24 volts. And this is our transformer in the middle. The transformer is connected directly to our L1 and our neutral, and all that 120 volt power comes in through the primary side of the transformer, and then it's stepped down to 24 volts on the secondary side of the transformer, and that's what operates our contacts. And whenever we energize or de-energize the coil, that's going to close or open our contacts and allow us to either operate or not operate all these components up here. So I guess I should go ahead and move over to the board, and then we could do a quick run through of how this thing is wired. One quick second, let me just take this stuff off. Go ahead and all right. Oh, he got it. Boom. I don't see him, but he's in there. All right, my bad. I tested it out earlier just to make sure all my components were still working, and I forgot to take it back apart. Okay. So everything's been taken apart. Make sure you guys can see. Can you see the board pretty good? That's as probably good as it's gonna get. All right. I wish we could all be here so y'all can touch it, but soon enough, y'all be here. Y'all do this yourselves. As you all have seen in the intro lab, we got these all across the wall, so everybody will get a chance to mess with them. But anyway, so last time we were focusing on heat. We're not going to be dealing with the heat today, so this red light bulb won't be used. This heat relay 2 won't be used. We're still going to be using our indoor fan relay, and we're going to be using our 2-speed fan again, but also we're going to introduce the single-speed fan, the green light, which is symbolizes the compressor. Go ahead.
Me. I cannot see the whole board on the screen.
No.
No, it's little bit. We have to move a little bit far from the camera, or
should I move it back a little?
Yeah, please.
Is that good right there? Worse?
Little bit on the left side. Move the camera a little bit left side, sir. Perfect.
Is that good?
Yep.
Okay. All right, cool. So we got all our components we're going to use. So I'm going to flip back and forth like I did last time, so we can go step by step. I'm going to show you on the diagram first, the first wire I'm going to be hooking up, and then I'll go back to the physical board. So we're going to start with our L1 to from our
terminal.
Yep, to the contactor. So we're going from L1 to the contactor. So on the contactor is actually marked L1. There's 4 contacts on there. There's L1 and L2, and then T1 and T2. So I'm gonna go ahead and go from L1 to L1. So I'm gonna do that. Actually, you know what? Before I do that, I'm gonna backtrack and just cover one basic thing that we didn't get to talk about. Let me just grab my strippers. I got my strippers. Now I got my wire. So one thing that we didn't really get to talk about, I know it was in the chapter. Actually, I think I covered it in one of the lectures, but a conductor, I just kind of want to touch on a conductor and an insulator. So we know that conductors is something that actually allows electrons to flow, and then an insulator doesn't. So the wire that we're using, because it dawned on me this morning that last week I was connecting stuff, and someone might be saying, well, how is he connecting that? Without seeing it up close, to me, it might be obvious, but it might not be obvious to everyone. So I'm gonna just kind of break it down how I'm actually connecting the wires to each component. You know what? We'll get up one more time. I'm gonna grab the contactor. Just to give you a closer look, because I know the board is not HD, but so our components have little terminals on them. Let's start with the contactor, for instance. So the contactor has these metal terminals on there. So you could connect up to 4 things on this side. You could connect up to 4 things on this side. So as you can see, and then the same thing on these 2 sides. These 2, like I said before, these 2 are your coil. These 2 terminals and these 2 terminals both connect to this coil. All that is a skinny piece of copper wire that's just wound up a bunch of times. One end is connected over here, one end is connected over there. And then these terminals are connected to whatever wires we connect to them. So how am I connecting these wires? So I'm gonna take a piece of wire. So the wire that we're looking at right now, this wouldn't work as it is, because the red part is the insulation. It's just plastic insulation. And the copper wire underneath is the conductor that we want to make contact with our terminals. So how do I make this little piece of plastic connect to a terminal and make the electricity flow? Obviously, right now, it doesn't work. So what we do, one of the things that you guys are going to be able to practice doing is using the strippers. So the strippers are designed to remove the plastic insulation from the outside of the wire and expose the copper wire inside. So this side is not stripped. This side is. And this happens with your strippers. So you can take your strippers, and also they can cut too. I like these ones because they got the little cutting part in the middle. So let's say I didn't like the way that one was stripped. I'll go ahead and cut that end off. And then the strippers have notches in them. I don't know if you can see all those tiny little circles for different size wire. So this is 18 gauge wire. The typical thermostat wire, no, this is not 18 gauge. This is a little bit bigger, 20 maybe. No, not 20. Now I'm confusing myself. But anyway, the smaller the number, the larger the wire. So this is an 18 gauge. This would be 16 gauge. So I'll put that on the 16 gauge hole, and I will close my, and you only want like about a 1/4 inch, not even a whole 1/4 inch of exposed wire. So I usually cut about that or strip about that much. You close your strippers and you just pull it off. And so now my little piece of insulation has been removed, and now my wire is stripped. And now, still not really all that functional. Still can't connect it to my terminals. So you have to connect what's called a spade connector. And there's a variety of different types of connectors for different components and different applications. But on this board, we're primarily using these female spade connectors and these fork connectors. So the female spade connector, it's a female because it goes over the male end of the terminal. So the terminal goes inside of the spade connector. So this piece is what I'm going to connect to my wire. The blue part is again insulation, and from I left my little screwdriver. So from this point to this point, you see how it's kind of fatter than the rest. That fat part is where the wire is supposed to rest inside the insulation, and then the insulated part of the wire kind of rests there, while the actual copper wire itself goes up into this neck portion of it. If you look inside of there, you probably can't see it through the camera, but on the inside, from this point up, the metal is actually making contact in here. So from this point back, there's no metal on the inside making contact. But from this point up, there is. So you want to make sure you strip enough so that you can put the wire in. It's going to go through the fat part and up into this the neck portion of it where the metal is on the inside. And then you take a different portion of your strippers and crimp it down. So down here, these are different sizes of crimpers. So I'm going to stick it right in the middle right there, and I'm going to crimp this down and make it hold tight to the wire, because right now it's not secure. If I were to plug it onto something, someone could easily just move the wire right out. And if that wire was hot, well, now you got a hazard, because now this hot wire is just flimsy, it's flying out. It's going to direct short at least, and then at the worst, possibly start a fire. So you want to make sure your connections are secure. So that's going to go inside. Then you get your strippers and you put it around the neck portion of the connector. This fat part in the back, again, all that is, it just kind of houses the insulated part of the wire. That's kind of the stopping point. and then the neck part is where you're going to squeeze down like so. Just squeeze down on it. And now it's crimped. So now it's secure, and now it's ready to be connected to your terminal. So that's all that is. And then sometimes when you're making connections, you're going to use what's called a wire nut. So let's say I ran out of wire. This is the last piece I had, and it don't reach to wherever I'm trying to go with it. But I found a scrap piece of wire on the ground. All right, boom. I'll just take this one and this one. I'll strip this. And then I'll take these two pieces of wire, put them side by side. And a lot of people twist them together first and then put the wire nut on. I was actually taught that that's incorrect. If you just put them side by side and let the wire nut do the twisting, you'll get a much more secure connection. So you just put them close together, put them both inside of the same wire nut, and then you just twist them. 1 second, boom. And you just twist until it's nice and tight.
Oh.
Boom. And now it's secure. It ain't going nowhere. And now whatever, because again, the copper wire inside is the conductor. So if this end is connected to a power source, then whatever I wire netted it to is now hot. So if this was hot, then this end would be hot as well, and I could pass power to whatever it is that I'm, connecting to. So so that's just a quick little lesson on how to strip wire and connect your connectors so that you can, so you can start making your connections. So I just wanted y'all to kind of see up close how I'm putting this bundle of spaghetti on that board, because it might not be obvious to everyone. So all right, so we're coming from L1 to the spilled all my connectors. So we went from L1 to the L1 terminal on the contactor. So going back to the beginning, this is our L1 here. These two are coming from our wall outlet. So that's L1. well, first we know we want our L1 to go to the primary side of our transformer, so we'll put that back. But then also we need L1 to go to the L1 terminal on our contactor. So I'll stick one here. And I'll put one here. And also, speaking of conductors, these terminal strips that I'm connecting all these wires to, that's all they are, just a bunch of conductors. There's a flat piece of metal that just sits in this little bay, and these two screws. So whatever is connected here, since these two are connected to my wall outlet, I got 120 here. Whatever I screw onto here is also going to have 120. But each bay is separated by these little plastic walls. So this isn't touching this or that. They're all their own individual circuits, but they're only energized when you energize them. So if I were to turn this whole board on, I could touch any of this if I wanted to. I wouldn't recommend it because silly habits like that might get you in trouble at some point. But just understanding how the components work and how electricity works, none of these are hot. Only the ones that we have something connected to. So let's say remember last week we had L1 connected to this relay and we had an L1 connected to this relay, plus we had L1 connecting to our transformer. Let's say we had a bigger project going on and we had like 10 different relays that all needed their own L1. We can only put so many wires on this same terminal because eventually we're going to run out of space. So what you could do, and sometimes in class what we do is we'll take a small piece of wire. This is not necessarily a small piece, but I could take a small piece of wire, connect it here, and then loop it over to here. And now this terminal is also L1, and I could connect another thing there. And so you could do that however many times you need to, because all it is just a bunch of little strips of metal conductors, and they'll be energized if you energize them. So that's what we use. It's just a means of getting power from one place to another. So far we've got our L1 connected to our transformer, and we got our L1 connected to L1 on our diagram. So I'm gonna go back to the diagram for the next step. Boom. So we got this L1 that's connected to our transformer, that's connected, and then we also have one connected to our contactor. So now we're gonna go ahead and do L2. We're gonna connect L2 to our transformer, and we're gonna connect L2 to the L2 terminal on our contactor. So go to L2 on my contactor. And then here's my transformer neutral. I'm gonna connect that and the one coming from my contactor. Connect both of those on the same terminal. So now, if I were to flip the switch to on, this contactor would have 120 volts right here, just ready to go, waiting to power up our fan and our fake compressor. But it ain't gonna go nowhere until this gets pulled in, and that's gonna come from. Anybody remember how we get these contacts to close? Somebody yell it out. No? Everybody remembers what it takes for this contactor to close? Would it help if I grab this one and kind of get it up close? You remember what we talked about, that what's gonna make this close?
Yeah.
Tell me.
We have to connect the coils first, then it's gonna be
Oh, that's it. Yeah, we need our coil voltage. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm skipping around a little bit, but it's cool. So this is our, these are T1 and T2, L1 and L2. Our contactor coil is way down here. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and hook up the contactor coil really quick. So I'll put this one here on one side of the coil. I'll put that to my common. And then this is gonna go to the other side of my coil. So I need one to go to Y and one to go to common. It doesn't matter. Oh wait, I didn't stop the screen share. So you guys didn't just see that, huh? You were just still staring at the diagram, huh?
No, we didn't see that, how you connect the coil, sir.
Oh, you did see
the diagram. I didn't see it.
Yeah, my bad. I didn't realize it was still on the screen share. So again, these two terminals are connected to the coil. So I need one to go to common and one to go to Y. So this one's going to common. It doesn't matter which one, but long as you have one side going to common, which is this one, and then this one's going to be my Y. So I'll connect to the coil, and then I'm gonna go over here, connect to Y, which is my yellow wire right here.
So the power supply is gonna be from the transformer, right, sir?
Yes.
All right.
For the low voltage, yes.
Yeah.
So our coil is connected. Now let's go back to our contactor. So we got our L1 connected, our L2, we have our coil connected between common, which is here, that's C here. This is our whole common side. And then we have our Y here. So our coil is connected properly. Now we have T1 and T2 on our contactor. So we have two things connected to T1 and T2. We have our green light, which is our fake compressor, and then we have our single speed fan, which is our fake condenser fan. So notice we got two things connected to this little dot right here. So that's one wire that's going to our light, the other wire is going to our fan. Same thing happening on the other side to T2. So we got 4 wires to connect. So let's do that. So this is my T1 and my T2. This is my fan. This is my light. So remember I said we got 4 things to connect. So here's 1, 2, and here's 3 and 4. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw the light on here because the light is a little bit easier because it just plugs right on. But to connect to my fan, we're using this little terminal strip. So I'm gonna have to use my little connectors like this. One's gonna go to the contactor, and then this one's gonna go to the terminal strip. So I'm gonna connect one here. And I know it must be kind of hard to see, but just like I was talking about on this little terminal strip, I got L1 connected here. So any of my other L1s need to be connected in that same bay. The same thing's happening up here on my fan. I got 2 wires connected on this first screw and then on this third screw. So when I connect from my contactor to the fan, I want to make sure I put my first one on that first screw. And then my L2 is going to go to that third screw. Because remember, if I got something connected here, but I got the other one connected here, these two things ain't matching up. So I just wanted to point that out because I had a few students do that. They had everything hooked up right. They couldn't figure out why the fan wasn't running, but they had the fan wires connected to 2 terminals up here, but then the other ones connected to 2 opposite terminals, and there was no continuity. Yeah. So just make sure you connect to the same contacts. So L1's going to this screw, L2 is going to go to this one. Okay. All right. So our contactor's done. We got our L1, we got our T1 and our other T1 for the fan and the light. We got our L2 and then our T2 and our other T2 also for the fan and the light. Contactor coil's done. All that part is finished. Now we got to get our fan relay connected. So we need an L1 to terminal 1 on relay 1. And that's going to energize our high-speed motor. So let's do that. That reach. Yep. So I'm going to go to my terminal 1 on my relay. And this is going to connect to L1. So that part is done. And then really quick. So we had this is done, L1 to terminal 1. Now we got to go from terminal 3 to high speed. So our terminal 3 is right here. Our high speed is going to be the black wire on our 2-speed motor. So I'm going to do that right here. Terminal 3. And again, it's marked. If you were here, you could see where terminal 3 was. They're all marked. It's just really small writing, but it's on there. All right. So terminal 1 is our power source. It's connected directly to L1. So our 120 volts that's going to power this fan is coming from terminal 1. And once the coil is energized, terminal 1 is going to send that 120 to terminal 3, and boom, the fan's going to start turning. Same way how we have 120 here, and when that closes, that fan's going to go. Same thing over here, except the contacts are internal. Where on these, you can see the contact. This one is internal, but once this coil is energized, power is going to go from here to here, turn that on. Anybody, you ever wonder why we do all this? Why am I hooking up power to this thing, then to that thing, when I could just hook the power directly to this fan and be done with it? Anybody ask themselves that, or maybe have the answer to that?
To turn it off and on, like the relay is connecting like close and open.
Exactly. Like a light switch or something, or even better than a light switch, because you have to manually go turn that on and off all the time. So if I were to hook power directly up to the fan, it'll work, but it'll work forever. Whenever I wanted to turn it off, I would have to go unplug it. You know, so that's the point of all these controls: the relay, the contactor, the thermostat, the 24-volt control. It's all for convenience. If we didn't have the control voltage opening and closing the contacts only when we wanted them, then everything will be on all the time. So that's the beauty of it. So if I turn to heat, then the little circuit board in there is going to know, okay, I need to send power to this. I need to send power to the low speed. You know, it's going to do what we want it to do at that moment. Today, I want to switch it to cool. I don't need this on. I want to turn that on. I want this in high speed. I want this to come on. So that's the whole point of the relays and the contactors. It's just a means to turning stuff on and off. So we have our high speed connected, and where are we at? High speed is connected. Now we need our L2 from our neutral from the fan to L2. Is this gonna reach? This is not gonna reach. This will. I just remembered I undid this for a demonstration. Now I got to put it back because that's the wrong one. So, quick little review. You hooking up your wire nuts. You don't want to twist them. You want to let the wire nut do the twisting. Put them next to each other, twist. That ain't going nowhere. All right. Whoa, it did go somewhere. I had a feeling that, see, notice one stuck in there real good and one didn't. This one has plenty of wire to grab. This one does not. So I need to re-strip that. That's poorly stripped, and that's why it just came out on me. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that, re-strip it. Now I got something to grab. Let's put those together. And these wire nuts come in all kind of different sizes. They're color coded.
What is the name of the yellow things, like little things you are twisting?
This is a wire nut.
Wire nut.
Wire nut, yep.
All right.
Wire nut, N-U-T. And they come in different sizes. The red ones are a little bit bigger than the yellow ones. And then the ones that we use a lot in the field are going to be the blue ones, because most of the wires are, a lot of the control voltage stuff is, you know, smaller wires. So the blue ones are super duper common. But and then you got orange. Actually, every single one I'm holding right now is really common. The really, really, really big wire nuts, that's more for electricians that are dealing with all kinds of crazy big wire and super high voltage stuff. But just, and not that we don't encounter it from time to time, but most of the time we don't. And most of the time we're dealing with, you know, smaller gauge wire. We use these, the yellows. I mean, the orange and the blue and the yellows are most common. And then sometimes you need your red one. Then they got blue ones that are huge. So
that's really convenient.
Yeah. What? What's convenient?
Like you're connecting the wire, and you can trace the cable where it's going. Like if you make a 3 or 4 connecting with the same color, so it's gonna be easy to trace like where the cable is going.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. You'll find yourself in the field having to do that a lot. You know, we're just trying to make things work. So those are wire nuts. So now that my wire is long enough, I'm going to connect to my neutral on the fan, and then to neutral or L2 on my terminal strip. Okay, I think we are done. Nope, we're not done. One last thing. Anybody want to point it out? You know, what's the last thing we need to do on here? What was that?
The second relay?
No, so we're not using the second relay today. We're only going to use relay 1. But the same problem that we just had a second ago. Relay 1 does not have coil voltage. So I'm going to hook up my coil voltage. Let me just refer to the diagram. So we're done with all the high voltage stuff. We have our L1 going to terminal 1. We have terminal 3 going to high speed. We have neutral going to L2. We just did all of those things. This part right here would be for the heat, for low speed. We're not going to pay any attention to that. All we got left now is our relay 1 coil, which needs to be connected to G and to common. So I'm going to put this one on G. Which is our green wire. And then this is going to be my common. So we are good to go. So we got our G here, we got our common here. So that coil is ready to go. Then we have our common for our contactor coil and our Y. So again, just a quick recap, or maybe for the first time for someone, R, Y, G, all these letters I keep referencing. I'm talking about the thermostat terminals. Every one of these terminals are marked. That one's a Y. We have an O and a B, which is for heat pumps, something that we'll deal with in the future. We have a W, we have an R, and we have a G. Don't know how they got those designations. I don't know why R isn't just 24, since that's our 24-volt supply. I don't know why Y is Y and not C, since that's for cooling. Whatever the case, that's what those are. We have a typical color code going on. Red is R. We have yellow going to Y. We have green going to G. We have white going to W. That's the typical color code for thermostat wiring. But it's not always the case. You might pull the thermostat off and have a bunch of red and white wires. And then you're like, well, what the hell is going on? Which is why you don't want to get hung up on the color code. You want to just make sure you know what each terminal is for. So if you know, I don't care if it was pink. If you know Y is for cooling, then you know this pink wire needs to be connected to our contactor coil, because this is for our cooling. So even if this W wire wasn't white, we know it's W, so we know it better be connected to our relay 2 coil, which is going to be controlling our heat from last week when we were doing heat. And then also, if this G wire was black instead of green, don't matter. We know it's G, so we know that has to be connected to our fan relay coil to operate the fan. So that's the whole point of those different designations, so you know how to identify what circuit, and that's going to help you make sure if your unit is wired up correctly. If somebody went by color code, but they didn't realize how things were connected at the unit, because in real life, the thermostat will be like in the living room somewhere, and this little terminal strip that we're connecting to will be on the circuit board inside of the furnace. So if somebody is downstairs at the thermostat and they put all the wires the regular typical way, they put the R to red, but they didn't know whoever was in the attic put the R to common. If he didn't know that and he turned that unit on, well, now you got a direct short. So regardless of the color code, you want to be sure that whatever the combination is in your thermostat is the same as on your circuit board. Whatever is Y here has to be Y here. Whatever you got going to W here has to be going to W here. So that's just a quick little recap on that. But so now we're done. We have our 120, which is going to pass to our high speed. We have our coil voltage that's going to energize when G gets energized. We have our G in common. Same thing over here. Our coils connected is going to energize when Y is energized for cooling. So we have our Y in our common. We got our hot and neutral coming in from L1 and L2. And then we have our 4 wires going to T1 and T2. Two from our light, 2 from our fan. So everything's ready to go. Our transformer's connected. So we have our 120 coming in, which is going to give us our 24 coming out, which is going to operate our coils. So we're good to go. I'm going to go ahead and plug it up. Cross my fingers. So nothing happened. That's because I didn't tell nothing to happen. So we have power now. This is hot, but nothing's gonna happen until we turn it on. So right now I want to test the fan. So I'm not gonna turn the AC on. I'm just gonna switch the fan switch to on. So boom, our fan is on, and it's operating in high speed. Go ahead and turn that back off. So we know that's working. Now I'm gonna turn the AC on. I think I broke it. You guys probably can't see from there, but there's a little snowflake icon on the thermostat, letting you know that the cooling is on. But that snowflake is blinking. So on some thermostats, when that's happening on this thermostat, that means that it's in a time delay. The moment that that snowflake stops blinking and it becomes solid and constantly on, then we no longer have the delay and it will start working. Let me see if y'all can see the little blinking snowflake. It's probably impossible. I don't know. It's right there though. Can anybody see that? Not really. Well, it's there. It's there. As soon as it stops blinking, it's gonna turn on. So, is that still in the right spot? Can you still see the board?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. And the thing is still blinking. You can't set the time delay on these either. It's just like internal. I got one or two of them next door that are literally like 15 minutes long. Don't know why. We'll see how long this one goes. If it stops blinking and then nothing still comes on, then we got a problem, which is fun. I used to like running into problems in class because that gives us opportunity to troubleshoot together. It's still blinking. I'm gonna grab some. So who's ready to see LeBron play again? I know I can't wait. I felt like we had a real good shot at getting the ring this year. And then this damn COVID thing happened and just stopped the season. I hope they come back still fresh.
Well, Clippers are in a position now to really challenge them because both of their stars are back fresh now.
Yeah. We'll see. It's gonna be interesting to see the remainder of the season. I think they're only doing. I heard they're like playing like the last 4 games or something. Like somebody said something about it's not going to be. I guess however much of the season was actually left is not actually going to happen. It's going to be like I guess condensed or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Based on their record after the break.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I guess I grabbed the one that's got the damn 15-minute delay. We'll see though. It's still blinking, so not panicking yet. So what'd you have to do to get back on the meeting?
I disinstalled the app, and then when I downloaded it again, instead of like picking any one of those 3 options, like for school, I didn't pick anything.
Oh, okay. So it stopped blinking finally, and now everything's on. So that green light is, again, that's like our compressor. This is our condenser fan. That is our blower motor. And that's all the components that are operating when your AC is on. So we don't need the heat. We don't need low speed. The reason why you need high speed for cooling and low speed for heating is because cold air is more dense than warm air, and it takes more to move it. It takes more to move cold air than hot air. So you need the fan to be in high speed for cooling, but that would be overkill for heat because it doesn't take that much to move hot air. It's lighter. So that's the reason why blower motors are multiple speeds. Even though now the condenser fan motors and even the compressors now have multiple speeds, and that's for efficiency. Old school units, it's either all or nothing. Now, the condenser fan, the condenser fan, the compressor, pretty much all the motors now can modulate. You good? Okay. They can modulate based on the load. So let's say if I was in this room alone, like I am right now, if I were to turn the AC on, it doesn't need to be at full capacity because there's not that much heat in this room to remove anyways. I'm in here by myself. It's pretty comfortable already. Now, if we filled this room with the classroom full of students, then that's going to be a higher heat load. So when that AC turns on, we're going to want that thing on full blast. So that's the benefit of modulating systems. They can go full speed or lower or whatever. It can modulate based on necessity. So that's what a lot of units are moving towards. They have what's called ECM motors, which electronic commutative motors, and they can do that. They can modulate. Some people don't like all these fancy units because they tend to have little problems. It just, it's a little bit more on the service tech to diagnose, if they do ever go on the fritz. But I mean, from an efficiency standpoint, it works. Because why have something operated at full speed and use all that energy when it's not needed? So it's all about saving energy. So that's why they're constantly making units more efficient. So anyways, these are like that. That one has 2 speeds, but it doesn't modulate. It's either high or low, depending on the function. This one is just single speed. It's either on or off. And this is a simulation of the kind of units that we have here in the classroom. I'm going to try to show you the units really quick. So I know you've all seen this stuff on the tour. Some of you might already know what these are. Some of you might not. But okay, so that single speed fan on the board, that would be, I should switch to my phone. That would be this little fan on the top. You guys can see that fan up there? That's our condenser fan. If I open this up, see that black thing down in there on the inside? Let me try to get in here. Oh wait, I know what I can do. Oh, damn it. I just ruined it. I don't know if anybody can see anything right now. Okay, my bad. Can y'all? Okay, y'all can see me again, right? Trying to carry a laptop around. I probably should be doing this on my phone. Okay, so anyway, our little single speed fan represented this fan here. That green light bulb, need an assistant. That green light bulb represents our compressor that's down in there. This ain't working out so great. Anyway, can everybody see that compressor down there, that black thing sitting on the bottom of the condenser? So that's what makes up the condenser, which is the part of the system where we reject heat. So we'll get into that in mod 135 for those who haven't done 135 already. And then the 2-speed fan represents the blower motor, which is located inside of our furnace here. So this whole thing here is our furnace. And behind the circuit board down here, we got a big blower motor, a multiple speed blower motor. And that's what comes on in low speed for heat or in high speed in cooling. So it's located at the bottom of our furnace. When it turns on, it blows through and out of the top of the furnace. And that's where all the hot air is blown, or the cool air if the AC is on. So those three major components are what's being represented right here. And that's exactly how it hooks up in real life. Matter of fact, I have one of those circuit boards that's in that furnace. Let me just grab it. Yeah, that was really hard to do, trying to hold a damn laptop and not break it. Should have switched to my phone. But anyway, so inside of that furnace, right behind where or right in front of the blower motor that I was trying to point out, you guys probably saw this little circuit board. So the terminals, the R, Y, G, W, all those things are right here on this terminal strip, right here down the side. You can kind of see the letters right there on the side, Y, G, and all the different letters. So this is located inside of the furnace. So whatever you have connected here, that same orientation has to be at your thermostat. Because like I said, in real life, you're not gonna have a little strip right here, right below the thermostat. This right here represents this right here. And the thermostat is an actual thermostat, but this will be located somewhere, living room, hallway, wherever it's at. It's not gonna be right next to this. So you just gotta be careful about making sure you use the same wire on R here that you use on R over here. And usually it will be the typical color code. It usually will be R going to, red going to R, yellow going to Y, and so forth. But I just like to make sure people understand that what's important is to know which terminal represents what. So we know Y is cooling, we know W is heating, we know G is fan, we know C is common, we know R is our 24-volt supply. R is where everything gets its power from. So there's another thing we do in the field when we're troubleshooting. We use jumpers, and we do what's called jumping out. We will jump out the system. And what that means is to bypass the thermostat. Let me just find my jumpers real quick. So every single technician in the world that's worth anything, he'll have a set of jumpers on. All these are is little alligator clamps that you can use to pass power from your R terminal to whichever you're trying to jump out. So mine, they come like just one solid. They come in just one solid alligator clip. There'll be a clip like this on both ends. But what I usually do is cut them, and I like to put at least 4 of them together. So I cut them and strip them, and I wire nut them all together like this. That way I can connect more than one thing more easily. So what I would do is, if I wanted to test the fan, I would connect one of these to R, because R is the 24-volt supply. R is constantly hot. So I'll connect one to R, and then I'll connect another alligator clip to G. If I want to test my fan, boom, as soon as I do that, the fan will start turning, because I just forced power from R to G. And now, like, okay, now I see the fan works. Now let's say I want to test the cooling now. I'll go ahead and grab another one. And this is why I like to wire up multiple jumpers together, because if I wanted to do a second thing, I would have to connect a second clamp to R, and then the other end of that one to whatever the next thing is. But the way I'm doing it, I only have to put one thing on R, and then I could just jump right to the next thing. So now I want to, I'm connected. I got one R, and I'm connected to my fan's working. Now I want to bring the AC into the picture. So I'm going to connect to my Y. So I just connected a second thing. I still only got one R because they're all wire netted together. So that's how I like to do mine. So boom, now I got all three of them working. Let's say it's a heat pump. A heat pump has what's called a reversing valve. And now that I see everything's working, now I want to energize the reversing valve and make sure that's working. Boom, I got a whole extra alligator clip. This board does not have a O terminal for a heat pump because it's not for a heat pump system. So we're just gonna pretend this is O. I can connect there, and then you'll hear the reversing valve. It's a real distinctive sound. You'll know when we get to that point. But now I can connect that. I can see if I can hear my reversing valve engage, and now I've just tested different circuits with my jumpers. So that's the point of having jumpers. But the reason I did that description is just to further kind of explain that R is the power source for your low voltage. R is what's connected directly to your transformer. So whatever you connect to R is going to be hot. So since we got our clip on R, I can take the other end, connect it to whichever other terminal I want to energize and test it out. That's also a way to diagnose a thermostat. If I go to the thermostat, I switch the fan switch to on and nothing happens, first thing I'm going to do is pop the thermostat off, connect my jumper to the R on the thermostat, connect my other one to G, and if the fan kicks on, all of a sudden, it just didn't work when I did it from the thermostat. I bypassed the thermostat, hooked up my jumpers, all of a sudden it works. We know we got a bad thermostat because, it just didn't work. So that's why these are so important, because it'll save you a lot of time. Some people will turn the fan on, be like, oh, what's wrong? And go straight to the fan and start tearing open the thing and start trying to diagnose the fan. And they skipped a very simple step. Bypass the thermostat. Maybe the problem's right there. You might not even have to go in the attic or wherever the fan is at. Pull that thermostat off the wall, force power from R to G. And if the fan all of a sudden starts turning, problem solved. It was your fan. So, your thermostat. If you were to do that and change the thermostat, you still would want to, after you put you still would want to just run it, test out the system, and make sure there isn't another problem. But you don't want to skip the simple stuff. You always start at 1 and then work your way to 2, 3, 4, whatever's next. So anyway, anybody got any questions about any of that? You guys feel like you kind of feel less or you feel more experienced with looking at the diagram?
Yeah.
Because the next one we're going to do is going to be, so this was cooling only. This is what we just did. This was heating only, which is what we did last time. So next, we're going to do the full diagram, which includes
Heat and cold.
green light. What was that?
Heat and cold, both.
Both, yep. Green light, yellow light, both fans, 3 relays, and a contactor. So it's a lot of stuff, but it's real simple because we already did it. We did it all individually. So it's pretty simple at this point. So you guys feeling confident? You feel like if we were able to come here, you feel ready to try to tackle it yourself? If I gave you the diagram and was like, here, go ahead and make it happen, you feel ready to tackle that?
Diagram, it looks like little complicated for me, but the practical things, I can get it faster than the diagram. But I'm trying to find out the way.
Well, repetition is how we learn. So soon as we get a chance to come in class, we'll just do it over and over. The same way that I did it on, over the computer, is how I like to do it in class. If anybody is hooking up their board and they're like, oh, hey, Mr. Lucas, I need help with this, something's not right, I'm going to grab the diagram and I'm going to go wire for wire. I'm going to be like, okay, from L1 to L1 on the contactor, do you have that? They're going to look like, oh, okay, I got that. Like, okay, do you have L2 to L2? They're going to be like, oh, I missed that one, or whatever the case. But I like to go wire for wire, and
Right.
eventually it just starts to sink in. Like, oh, that's this. Oh, and then that is this. You know, because it's hard to relate this weird looking symbol to an actual component. It just takes repetition, getting used to doing it. The way things look don't always make sense still to me. And again, the designations, I don't know why they picked the letters they picked. I don't know why they picked the symbols the way they drew them or whatever the case, but I've seen it enough times to know, okay, that is this and this is that. And that's all it is, just repetition.
No worries. We will go through that.
Yep. And even when you get out in the field and you start feeling like you got it down pat, you're still going to run into new stuff. Or you'll run into the same thing using a different symbol, which I kind of talked about before. Like there's like 3 different ways to draw a coil on a diagram. So every manufacturer don't all use the same exact symbol. Some of them may have it look slightly different, but it'll tip you off what's what based on where it is. We know everything on the 24-volt section got to be a coil, you know, so even if it looks different, like, okay, that's the 24-volt. And we know if something's in the high volt section, we know, okay, this got to be a motor or whatever, you know, you'll have principles to lean on when you do look at foreign, you know, diagrams or equipment or whatever. So yeah, that's what we lean on in this trade. We learn enough just to kind of get out there and figure stuff out.
Thank you so much, sir.
No problem. So unless there's any questions?
No,
Nope.
I don't have questions.
All right, y'all have a good one.
Yes, sir. Have a wonderful day.
All right.